Josh. Thanks for having me join you today. We want to start this episode by stating affirmatively that Black Lives Matter and acknowledging the systemic racism that pervades every aspect of our society.
Let's start by taking a moment of silence to honor the lives of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, and so many others whose lives have been taken by white supremacy and police brutality. We're going to take a moment of silence now.
We stand with the protesters in this moment, but making statements of solidarity is not enough.
We recognize Aurora's participation in systemic racism and the marginalization of Black, Indigenous, and people of color over our 28-year history. And we acknowledge our responsibility to do all we can to combat these systems of oppression.
Here are the steps Aurora has taken and the commitments we make in the service of dismantling the systems that feed racism, anti-Blackness, and oppression.
We will continue our Community Partners Program, which connects us with new segments of our community, leading to more authenticity in our work, new audiences in our theater, and new representation in our advisory council, and eventually on our board.
We will continue regular anti-bias and anti-oppression training for front of house staff, administration, and board, including bystander intervention training. We'll create clear guidelines for front of house staff for responding to microaggressions, racist behavior, and questions about our policies.
We will continue to center our commitment to the community, which is intended to discourage microaggressions in our lobby and theater so that everyone feels welcome in our space. We will review and revise the text of the commitment as our understanding deepens and our situation changes.
We will continue holding monthly meetings of our Volunteer, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee with staff, board, and leadership participation. Recommendations from the committee will be presented to staff and board.
We will continue the conversation begun and act on the discoveries made in Welcome to Our Space, a town hall on audience interactions, exploring what theaters can do to discourage microaggressions.
We will actively recruit BIPOC board members.
We will increase the percentage of plays we produce by BIPOC playwrights, centering BIPOC stories. At least 2 of the 6 plays we produce each season will be written by BIPOC playwrights.
We will view our strategic planning process through an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens, and we will include a section on anti-racism and anti-oppression in our new strategic plan.
We will continue our commitment to producing at least 50% female playwrights and hiring at least 50% female directors.
We will adopt our new mission and value statement that includes a commitment to anti-racist and anti-oppressive practices.
We will continue to commission and develop scripts by BIPOC playwrights.
We will review and revise our employee handbook and all internal policies through an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens.
At least 80% of the scripts we read for consideration for production and development will be by BIPOC playwrights.
We will review and revise our job posting language and hiring policies through an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens.
We will increase the percentage of BIPOC actors, designers, and production staff working on our plays.
Josh and I commit to listening without defensiveness when we're called out for failing to embody anti-racist and anti-oppressive practices.
And Julie and I commit to not using our fear of getting it wrong as an excuse to stay silent.
We commit to regularly holding ourselves accountable to the commitments in this list.
And I want to say thank you to everybody who has encouraged us to make a statement like this and to make these commitments and for holding us accountable. And I want to thank you in advance for continuing to hold us accountable. Before we get to the rest of our episode, we want to share a story, a news story that really is inspiring us in this moment. Let's go to that video.
15,000 people united with one goal.
To have a solidarity march really starting out as like, I feel you, we feel you, Minneapolis, Oakland feels you.
To see the ones behind this, you have to zoom in.
My name is Akil Riley, I'm 19 years old.
My name is Xavier Brown, I'm 19 years old.
Two 19-year-old childhood friends coming together to create a movement. And it all started with a text.
He said, I'm trying to organize a solidarity march for Tuesday. And he was like, I'm gonna post it and pass out all flyers over Oakland. And I'm wondering if you wanna be a part of it because you're a leader. And then he was like, I have the post ready. And I was just like, let's do it.
The organizing was key. It took 4 days with social media playing a vital role. And the rules were clear.
We set out the guidelines that we didn't want to loot and destroy things. That just wasn't what we were trying to do then. And I think that obviously attracted a bigger crowd because we had younger people and also older people.
The voices of these Howard and UCLA freshmen were heard throughout Oakland.
All lives cannot matter until Black lives matter.
Even making it to City Hall.
We are very proud of that beautiful demonstration.
What does that tell you about the power that lies within you?
I think it gave people hope that the youth has the power to organize.
Young people are underrated because we're some of the smartest people in the world.
A power that not only influenced and inspired thousands, but also the principal at Oakland Tech High, seeing one of her own on the front lines of this protest.
It does give me hope because, sometimes I feel kind of hopeless. I don't know what to do besides educate, and that's the way in which I hope to improve the world. And I'm just happy that my young people are doing it and doing it their way.
One word to describe this movement.
I'll say 3 words. Revolution of youth. Yeah. Actually, no, 4. Revolution of Black youth.
Director. Oh, and thank you for bearing with us. We are now joined by Aurora's Associate Artistic Director, Dawn Monique Williams, our co-host for Aurora Connects. Dawn, welcome.
Hi, Josh.
How are you today? Oh,
I'm doing all right. All right.
All right. Do you have a quote for us?
I do, and today's quote comes from Polar Bears, Black Boys, and Prairie Fringed Orchids by one of our honored guests today, Vincent Terrell Durham. Polar bear. If Elijah was a polar bear. I've seen it on the news. Well, not polar bears, but sometimes in California, bears come down into their neighborhoods. People are afraid and call 911. The police show up, but they don't kill the bear. They get somebody to shoot it with a dart and it falls asleep. Then they carry it back into the woods. Somebody would have carried Elijah home to me. Again, that's from Vincent's play, who will join us here in just a few moments to share more with us.
Thanks for that, Dawn. So I think we're at the point now where we're going to say goodbye to Julie. Julie, thank you so much for joining us on Connects today.
Of course, glad I could do it.
All right, and we're going to welcome our guests for this week. We have a playwright by the name of Vincent Terrell Durham, and an actor and much more, who many of our audience members are familiar with, Aldo Billingslea. Welcome.
Hi, friends.
Hello.
Hey, y'all. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd love to, for you guys to tell us a little bit about yourselves to start us off. Aldo, why don't you go first? Can you just tell us a little bit about your work with Aurora and other places around the Bay?
I came in and did some readings with Aurora, one which led to Collapse, and then another which was This Is How It Goes, which was pretty exciting to do a play in Berkeley that was so compelling that an audience member got up out of his seat, shouted, and walked across the stage with his wife to get out of the theater. And then the wonderful actor, Gabriel Marin, had to ask the audience, shall I continue? And then they applauded him and said, go on, and we finished the show. So that sort of thing can happen in live theater. And most recently in dry powder.
Mm-hmm. And where do you work when you're not at Aurora?
I happen to work at a place called Santa Clara University, as I'm trying to brand and promote my institution. I'm an acting teacher there and do a number of other things. But I'm also involved in Bay Area theater scene as a board member for the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, and I'm an associate producer at Playground San Francisco.
All right, well, it's great to see you.
And that's where I discovered this wonderful script written by the talented Vincent Terrell Durham.
Well, great. Let's talk to Vincent. Thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. First, I'm excited. This is my 7th year as a playwright, so I'm celebrating that all year long. January 2013, I was working as an accountant. I ran into an old friend, and he said, "You're an accountant? You were supposed to have been a writer." So shortly after that, I quit my job. And I started writing plays. So yeah, and I'm in the Los Angeles area.
All right, and this play was it commissioned by Playground? Is that right?
It was. It started as a 10-minute play with Playground LA in 2016, and then in 2017 it was commissioned. And yeah, it's been a process birthing this play.
Well, tell us about that process. Talk us through how it's gone.
Well, it's really fun because like it looks nothing like the 10-minute play whatsoever. If you know how Playground works, they give us a prompt and you have 4 days to write a play. And this prompt was, let me get it right. It was Awakening the Dream of Earth. And this was in November 2016. And I struggled with the prompt because it was really about, saving the planet and having taken in those environmental issues. And a couple of months before that, Philando Castile had been killed, had been murdered. So I was having a hard time reconciling saving the planet when I needed someone to save me. So I kind of wrote a tongue-in-cheek play about, these people at a Black Lives Matter meeting, and this liberal woman stands up and starts talking about, yes, and let's save the planet. So that's where it started, and it's really taken on a whole different life. Every draft has become a different version of the last draft.
Mm-hmm. Well, tell us a little bit about the play as it is now. About who are the characters and what's the story about?
Sure. Okay. Actually, this play is like my homage to God of Carnage. I really wanted to write a cocktail play with just people in a room having conversations, and those conversations just spark more conversations, and people get upset, people laugh, people just go through a whole bunch of things. But the play centers around Molly and Peter. They've opened up their renovated Harlem brownstone to a Black Lives Matter activist, his lover, a young lady who runs a bookstore in Harlem, and then also a grieving mother of a 12-year-old boy who has been recently killed by the police. And it's just a night where this one lady, Molly, thinks that she can bring these people together and possibly learn some things and possibly heal each other. And it kind of goes off the rails.
But while it goes off the rails, there is so much humor in this piece that is still addressing violence against Black bodies and violence against the planet in some ways. Some of those environmental themes are woven into the relationship and the discussion in a way that we can be aware, and we can laugh at some of the attempts that we're making and how we make them to raise awareness. And then we get to watch these relationships go, and people react to some of these thoughts that seem somewhat outlandish, and then maybe seem to have some merit to them at the same time.
Yeah, it's such a complicated play, and so interesting to try to track like who am I sympathizing with over the course of this play, and which argument is landing on me in which way. It's it's really remarkable. Tell us, Aldo, you sent me this play a few days ago, and told me about a project that's coming up around it. Will you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. First, I'll tell you that when I was introduced to the play, I had missed it at the reading that had happened after it was first commissioned. But there was this buzz about this play, and people were saying, you really need to try to read this play, hear this play. And so I took a copy of it with me on a trip to South Dakota. And my family and some friends were driving from South Dakota to Nebraska, and I thought, I'll read it in the car. I got 3 pages, maybe 4 into the script, said, stop, turn off the radio. We're going to read this play all the way to Nebraska. And we laughed, and the people were testifying in the car, and there were oh no's, oh no, oh no's, as things going on in there, and read it all the way through, and then decided this thing is awesome. So we had my wife and I had a trip to Ashland that summer. This is last summer. We staged a reading at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival because I thought they should hear this. Some of our friends who are actors jumped in, we read it, and there was some buzz, but the theater was already thinking about doing some other plays, and so I came back and gave Vincent the feedback. Then, just about a week ago, I got a phone call from Jim Kleinman, who is the artistic director of Playground, and he wanted to talk about a statement that the theater would make, much like the one that you opened this session of Connects with, a Black Lives Matter statement. And when he got through, I said, well, I actually thought you were calling about Vincent's play. I thought you were going to call and say, we should do this play, this play reading that talks about the Black Lives Matter movement, that has white characters coming together with Black characters to discuss some stuff that's so difficult for us to discuss that we just don't, and we should before it explodes. So I said, maybe we could work with the Lorraine Hansberry, because my connection there, and the Lorraine Hansberry is already doing another project with Playground, and so maybe we can do that. And then we started just brainstorming about trying to get more theaters involved, and we did. And so I've been sending out emails, and it's not surprising that you were one of the people that we contacted early, Josh, and contacted you, contacted Eric Ting at Cal Shakes, and Eric was on immediately, and then you said, I need to read it, and then I don't know if you just read a page or two, because really quickly you were able to call back and say, we're in, we are.
I read a few pages, gave it a skim, got the sense of it, then went back and read the whole thing after.
Good. And then, yeah, once you realize this is Aurora material, then you're in. And so in that week, we now have 19/20. There's a verbal approval, but I have to get the formal approval from one more to push us up to 20 different theaters in the Bay Area that are going to be a part of a play reading of this wonderful script on Juneteenth, because that's appropriate too. Mm-hmm. So on the 19th of June, which celebrates the emancipation of the slaves in Texas, the last slaves in the Confederacy who were still being held almost 2 full years after they were freed, and well after the Civil War, the slaves were freed in Texas when used to know the soldier's name, Lieutenant, landed in Galveston, Texas, and then said, "You're free," and freed those slaves. That's a celebration that happens around the country in a lot of different places on Juneteenth. Yes, the 13th Amendment is also important because it freed the slaves that were in Union states, but the last Confederate slaves were freed with Juneteenth. And we think that freedom, that emancipation, And those tones of equality are important when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Aldo, Berkeley has a long tradition of honoring Juneteenth. So I'm really excited that Aurora can, contribute in any small way to this reading. I just wanted to flag that you mentioned OSF, and you are one of the actors who spearheaded the Juneteenth celebration in Ashland about a generation ago that still really goes strong to this day in Ashland. And I just wanted to affirm you in that and thank you for keeping it going and to continue to educate people about what Juneteenth is, because I'm not sure everybody knows.
Well, I thank you, Dawn. And I think I owed you a video that you were going to try to put together at some point or something like that. And yes, you've done your homework. I haven't done Granger. The lieutenant's name was Granger, who landed in Galveston. So thank you for that. Because I've been with Santa Clara University for the last 22 years, the one time in the year when I'm usually free to do my scholarship and act on stage, particularly if it's not a local theater, is in the summer. And so I go and I'm working somewhere during the summer, as I was at that point at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in 2003. And so we start talking about Juneteenth, and we start talking about, do you have a Juneteenth celebration? And so then we start cooking and talking, and music comes out, and joy comes out, and we celebrate the fact that this state, this nation that says that we are all created equal, we can try to uphold some of those standards and try to walk that talk.
Vincent, I'm really taken with, in the play, I'm embarrassed to admit that it was new to me, having just got it a few days ago when Aldo sent it. But I'm really taken with the thematic intrigue around our Black men, Black boys, and endangered species, and the kind of conversation that takes place in the play around that. And I think what we're learning in recent history is that climate justice and racial justice are so intrinsically linked. And so I wonder if in this current moment coming out of, we're not out of it, but like in the midst of a global health crisis, an environmental crisis, and now all these protests, how are you feeling about the play being so timely when you started it 4 years ago? And if that is bittersweet for you in any way, if you feel like there's more development you want to have with the piece, if there's any new statements you want to make with it?
Sure. It is bittersweet. It's hard to say that this play is hitting at this time, because it's hard to say that, I've written a piece that really lives in this time. It's hard to say that it's fortunate about something that's so tragic. So I don't even know how to talk about that aspect of the play. But, I do know that things always seem to happen when they're supposed to happen. Because I've sent this play out quite a few times and it's not been received, but, it's been received now. So I believe in divine intervention, and I believe in Aldo. So, it happened when it happened.
Well, but also because sometimes you become a messenger for a great message, even if it doesn't have your voice. So I didn't write this play. I may never get a chance to read the lines in this play. I'm producing it, and so I might cast me, but my fingers are crossed for another Bay Area actor who, if he could do the role, then I will gladly back off, because that Bay Area actor's already been on Broadway in a big old hit, the big old Tony Award-winning hit. Everybody knows I'm talking about David. If I can get David to play that role, then I'm gonna back off. Cool. That would be very cool. And I only say that out loud right now to put extra pressure on him.
Come on, David, come on back.
Come on home, brother. And again, the other thing that you might not know about Vincent, besides the fact that he was an accountant, he also did stand-up. And he's a comedian. He knows comedy. He knows what works. He lays in. It's so well written already. And it's early, so this play that we get to hear will invariably have some changes that also will help to improve it along the way. And but he lays in seeds early. I giggled the very first time the wife said to the husband, "You stop listening to your wife." And there's a little part of me that just shrank up and tried to get defensive. Yeah, a good playwright, which he is, takes note of the world that they're in. They listen to the language, they listen to the people, they listen to the moment. They capture that moment. And when you do it really, really well, it becomes more universal. And unfortunately, particularly with the gun violence in our country and the issues of systemic racism in our country, that combination means that even when it's not the cops shooting us down, that it's going to be some yahoo with a gun who wants to be a cop or wants to play cop, even when he's not being a cop, that decides that our lives are worth less. And we as a people are not worthless. But that's something we have to continue to try to communicate.
Yeah. How something I've been thinking about a lot in this moment, I mean, with both with COVID and with what's happening right now with the Black Lives Matter protests, is how our society is going to change and what's going to be different on the other side of this. And I'm wondering, in terms of, I talk a lot about, you know, theater being a medium for stories that are speaking to the present moment. And when the moment changes, the stories have to change, right? And that's why I'm such an advocate for new plays. And in this moment, our story as a nation is changing. And I'm wondering how that is going to affect this play, both in terms of how it will be received by Black audiences, by white audiences, by everybody, how people will experience it differently because of the moment we're going through now, and also how, Vincent, how you might be interested in rewriting the play based on how the country is changing.
Sure. I'm really actually looking forward to seeing what the play becomes, because like I wrote the play hoping that it would start conversation,
yeah.
But the conversations have already started. So I hope the play continues conversations. But the other part about the play that I hope hits home is like these tragic killings that we see, we only get to meet the victim in their last moments of life, in their last seconds of life. And without giving too much away on the play, you get to spend an evening with these people. You get to know these people. You get to know them before the most tragic thing that ever happens to them in their life. So that's still one of the big hopes that I have for the play. But the conversation's already started, so the play is just going to add to the conversation.
Yeah. And that's one of the rare things about this script is when I was the interim artistic director of the Lorraine Hansberry Theater, we had a playwriting competition to have a piece that had at least 2 African-American women in it. One of those women had to be over 40 years old. And it was a comedy. Just those 3 things made it really, really tough. The fact that we wanted those 2 women to have a conversation with each other and it not be about men, these are the components that pass the Bechdel test from Andrea Bechdel. And it made a lot of the plays that were submitted, it disqualified a lot of those plays. This play goes a step further for me in that it's not just and only to be classified as a Black play, which for a lot of theaters means that we will relegate it to only 1 month of the year, 1 slot that we could possibly be looking at it for, and it will have to compete with the Latinx play and the Jewish play and the LGBTQ plus play and all that sort of thing. So all those things that August Wilson talked about in '96, On the Ground of Which I Stand, are still true, that we still relegate and ghettoize a lot of the work. This play has white people and Black people together dealing with this issue that we don't talk about enough. And as Vincent said, you know, it's a catalyst for the conversation. Well, that catalyst has happened, and that's a great thing. In this moment, I just got off of another call with a bunch of actors who were talking about how this moment is different. And one of the actors said, well, this in somewhat similar to Ferguson and a little similar to Trayvon, there are whites that are marching and they're also on camera and they've got their videos at that there and that sort of thing. But in this instance, some of those white bodies are being brutalized as much as the black bodies, and as much as along with the black bodies. Let me qualify that. And for the nation, it's kind of like watching Selma, and when the first bridge across the march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge happens in Selma, and the tear gas and the horses and the brutality is in your living room on television. You see that something shifts, and it's not just their issue anymore, it's everybody's issue. And so hopefully this becoming everybody's issue, and this play, which has all these people in conversation saying, this issue, this thorny issue, how do we deal with this when we have all these different perspectives? How do we make this work is important.
I just want to jump in and say one to you, Vincent, that yes, when I got to the end of the play, I was so deeply moved, and I think it's because the humor takes you on this ride, but it's also revealing. There's so much nuance in the play, and when I got to the end of the play, I mean, really, I was moved to tears, really, because of any number of emotions, sadness, but also appreciation. Like you say, that we get to understand these characters a little bit more than just only meeting the victims posthumously. Something else that was really gripping for me along the lines of what Aldo is saying about the play is how it's dealing with some interracial dynamics. You know, one thing is that this young white couple, they've adopted a black child, so they're raising a black son. But then also there's an interracial romance that featured in the story, and I am not an adoptee, but I am the product of an interracial marriage, and so I could relate so much in terms of the efforts that my white mother made to try and learn what she could about Black culture, or the way she tried to approximate herself to Black culture. But then also the lessons I'm having to teach her as an adult, that like her whiteness isn't my whiteness, that's hers. So the play is so deeply nuanced, and I really appreciated those aspects. I wish there were a clearer question in there. I'm just really fangirling right now, but certainly if there was anything you wanted to speak to along the motivations of interweaving those threads in there, I'd be happy to learn more.
Sure. Thank you for those wonderful words. I can only say that, like, my writing comes from everything that I've experienced. So I grew up in a family that had interracial couples in it. And of course, my first cousins were biracial children. So I've been in the room when they haven't been in the room, and hearing discussions from my aunts and uncles about, you know, what they perceive as their struggles in life, what these children's struggles in life will be. So a lot of that, you know, I try to put into the play, try to articulate that in the play. And also the interracial couple between Jaquan and his lover is, you know, I grew up in upstate New York, and as a gay man, my dating choices were not that wide. There were not, at the time I grew up, there were not a lot of Black people in Binghamton, New York. So my dating choices were limited. So I did date a lot of white men, and the challenges that I have in the play with those two, Jaquan and Tom as a couple, those are the true to life challenges that I've had dating white men. So
well,
people are calling me up and saying, "Is that me?"
It depends on, you know, what kind of terms you're on. You say yes. Yes. But that's, if you were to take a checklist and say, what is all in this play? Does Does it talk about global sustainability? Yes. Does it talk about some issues of gender? Yes. Does it talk about issues of family? Yes. Does it talk about gay life? Yes. Race? Yes. And you can go on down the line. Gun violence, gentrification. It's just amazing, and yet it doesn't jump on a soapbox. It doesn't. It's not a polemic. It's not a lecture. It's not a long diatribe and feeling like somebody came in with, with an agenda and the skill to wield a sledgehammer. It is artful, and so part of the objective was with this project was, can we use what we do? How I've seen Julie work and Josh work and Dawn work. Even going back to when I saw your fellow at Shady Shakespeare, which is now Silicon Valley Shakespeare, we collaborate, and we collaborate with people sometimes that we don't get along with, but we can still work with for a higher purpose. And can we collaborate and show people this is how we do it with a better soundtrack? I can hear it now. And at the same time, skillfully put this script in the hands of artistic directors all around the country. So because the Playground SF, Jim Kleiman, the artistic director there, generously has said that he would pay for the actors and the director, and we are asking for contributions from each sponsoring theater or each theater that wants to participate to send a small stipend to Terrell, which is adding up nicely right now. I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna take care of you, brother. No,
I'm laughing at the crowd. I'm laughing at the crowd.
I'm not just saying that because if I can't get in this because of David, I'm looking for the next play. So, or I need this one to have enough of a life so that somebody else will cast me along down the line. But so that all of those theaters who say yes, but we don't have the time. We only got 2 weeks till Juneteenth. We can't do this in time, so we're just going to contribute to the playwright's fee and add our name to that long list. That's great. Or if somebody in Philadelphia says we want to do our own, so we have our own local actors in it, then I reached out to Seth Rosen at Interact in Philadelphia. Just connected with, I just got a text back from Rob Melrose in Houston at the Alley Theater. I'm trying to get in touch with Kent Nicholson, who was in the Bay Area and now is on the East Coast, so that we can have more people looking at this. And we take our Friday night and we're focused on theater, which is really how God planned us to spend our Friday nights in the theater.
Yeah, it's such a relief whenever I get a chance to think about a play for a second or think about an artistic project for a second. It's been a long time that we've been unable to do as much of that as we usually do.
Right.
Yeah. We're getting close to the end of the episode, but I wanted to ask if you guys have anything you'd like to share or say about further about the protests that are happening now, about the situation now, anything you want to share with our audience, or just anything you want to say in this moment.
Sure. Really, I'd like to give honor to all of the people who have died in America from violence of America. The play doesn't exist without that topic. And the play doesn't exist without the pain that I've experienced. That's kind of what I write about, is the pain of waking up every day and being Black in America. And I would just really be remiss if I didn't pay honor to the people who have lost their lives. And I'm just able to articulate the pain that I think they might have experienced. And I'm glad that I have a voice, and hopefully my voice continues their voice.
That's beautiful. I would say to think about not the shot heard around the world, but the shot that hurts around the world, which is that bullet that comes from the oppressor that hits the oppressed. And that's the bullet that takes out Martin Luther King. That's the bullet that takes out Philando Castile. That's the bullet that takes down Trayvon Martin. And even when somebody dies because they're being choked to death, that's the bullet that takes down George Floyd. That bullet hasn't stopped yet. And it's fueled by the systemic racism that we have to stop. And if we can use this moment and take this moment to actually change something, change our behavior, and even change our behavior 3 weeks from now when people aren't watching us and we're not on Facebook, or we're not, don't have a selfie in front of us, if we can still use that moment to make sure that our behavior towards other human beings is right, then this play does its work, these movements do their work, and we're a better place for it. We're a better country for it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Dawn, anything you want to add to that? Shall we move on to our wrap up?
Yes, I just want to also offer my appreciation for you both being with us today. I just, you know, the Black man is a god. So I just appreciate you both so much. Friends,
So,
watching.
Dawn, I just want to jump in really quick and say,
yes,
thank you for saying the Black man is a god, but the Black woman is a goddess and doesn't always get her due. And when you look at the shift in sentencing, the shift, what's happened with the protest in Minneapolis, with the officers, the others being brought in, the shift from 3rd degree to 2nd degree, and you go, yes, but Breonna Taylor, nothing's happened to the people who are responsible for her death. Nothing has happened. And it's because we as a nation don't value women the way that we should. And the Black woman doesn't get her due. So please, please, Black lives matter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Friends watching at home, again, we welcome all your comments and feedback. So always feel free to write right there in the YouTube chat box or the Facebook comments. And certainly you can still email us as ever at connects@auroratheater.org. We love hearing from you. And thank you for being with us today.
Next week, we have the original topic for this week's episode. It's been pushed back another week. We have 3 playwrights. They're going to be talking about a new project that we have in the works. And I'm very excited to talk to all 3 of them. They're 3 really remarkable local playwrights: Cleavon Smith, Lauren Gunderson, and Jonathan Spector. Thank you so much. Thank you, Aldo. Thank you, Vincent. Dawn, thank you. Julie, thank you for joining us at the beginning. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Stay safe, and thank you for staying connected.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.